Do you think there's ever, like we hear about this term like global police and stuff, do you think that since World War II there's been any foreign intervention that's been generally positive or moral?
No.
Great question.
From the United States of America? No.
In Korea, anything like that?
No. I mean, it's a disaster in Korea. Oh, this awful bloody war ended in a stalemate, and the North Koreans have been prisoners ever since. I mean, it's just, Vietnam was just, horrific, obviously. I think even like Clinton's intervention in Serbia was horrible.
I didn't know that was
yeah, well, it didn't go well. Vladimir Putin knows. He was pretty pissed about that. But and then, of course, all the terror wars have just been, just wrecked the Middle East and, spent trillions of dollars on slaughtering hundreds of thousands of people. So, no, I don't think so. And it was like, America was never really supposed to be the policeman of the world. That's a fairly new thing. And it doesn't make sense. It's like you can't. The whole thing about America is we're supposed to be like a constitutionally limited republic. The idea is people are free here, with some exceptions. We got around to it eventually, but it's. So I'm not saying we were perfect, but no, the idea. Come on, it's just like so obvious. It's like, come on, you can't have that much power and it not be corrupting. You're telling me this is what the neocons, also those same ones in A Project for a New American Century, or actually, no, it wasn't A Project for a New American Century, but it was two of the guys. It was Bill Kristol and Robert Kagan, and they wrote in the piece is called "Toward a Neo-Reaganite Foreign Policy." It was in the Weekly Standard, or it was in Foreign Affairs, actually, I think. And they wrote that was what they were suggesting. It was after the fall of the Soviet Union, and they said America has to be the benevolent hegemon.
What's a hegemon?
It's basically means
power.
Empire.
The
means controlling everything. So he's gonna, but the good empire,
Okay.
like we rule the world, but like we're the good guys.
It is.
All right.
Is it really as simple as there are a few companies that benefit in a dramatic fashion by creating wars around the world? Is it that simple?
No, I think there's more to, like, that is definitely true. That's just a fact.
But are they sitting in a boardroom going, okay, let's invent some wars because we got some bombs to sell?
Well, I think that there's ideologues in there too, and they all kind of weirdly meet up. And so, like, if you have, like, part of the reason that neoconservatives just totally hijacked American foreign policy is that their agenda was that we should be fighting. Like, look, they were saying back in the 90s that when there was this big kind of turning point, which I think is really underappreciated by people around our age, because we were kind of kids in the 90s, and you're kind of like, oh, I just remember that as being a time when America was more America, and now everything's kind of crazy. Back then it was more what we, like, was simple to understand. But what happened in 1991 is the Soviet Union collapsed, and for the first time in human history, there was a true unipolar superpower. Like, there's really never been anything like that before. It was just the United States of America. And there was this big debate about what we're supposed to do now. Like, what, and basically the Soviet Union had been used as the excuse for the military-industrial complex. The military-industrial complex...
It falls. Now there's no excuse. They have to create one.
Yeah.
Dave.
So this is the whole thing.
Can you just say that one more time so people are... Well, this is really interesting.
So just to rewind a little bit, right? You understand, there was not really a military-industrial complex until World War II. World War II is when it was created. This is Eisenhower. Eisenhower was the 5-star general who led us to victory in World War II.
And then later said,
and when he was president, he goes, listen, that was his farewell address. Listen, we've created this military-industrial complex. We've built up these great big weapons companies. And he was basically saying, there's a business of war now. And it's big business. So now the...
Real quick. This is so important. I just want to make sure everybody understands it. Just the term military-industrial complex, can you just briefly say basically what that means, who you're talking about, and then we get right back.
Well, just basically that there's a big business of war now. There are these huge manufacturing arms companies that are in the business of selling weapons to the government. So there's big business here, and they're heavily incentivized to get more business. But the way they get more business isn't like you or me. It's not like we got to get more people to come to our shows or something like that. It's like they got to get more politicians to sign off on wars so that they use the weapons they just sold them and need to buy more weapons from them for the next thing.
Okay.
So Now, William F. Buckley, who was probably...
Sorry to interrupt one more time. Was Eisenhower's point, we need to be wary of this? Or was he like, okay.
No, he was like, we need to guard against them trying to get more power.
Got it.
And this is 5-star general, Dwight D. Eisenhower saying it.
The country needed to create one to win World War II.
Yes, to win the war, yes, we probably needed to do that. But
because everybody got on board, right?
But we
Ford
didn't
was making
necessarily...
tanks and shit. Like, it became...
Yes. But then we created, right after World War II, we created the CIA, which was in the beginning supposed to be like kind of like a newspaper for the president, like a secret newspaper. It's like, listen, we need to know what's going on around the world. So you come and give the president all the intelligence of what's really going on. And then it very quickly turned into like a paramilitary secret kind of black ops thing. No offense. So now Bill Buckley, who was really the most kind of influential conservative figure in the second half of the 20th century. He wrote this big piece about it where he was basically like, in converting the old right into the new cold warriors, he was like, listen, we are supposed to just be like a city on a hill, limited government, traditional conservative thing. But here's the thing. Is we got the Soviet Union. So at the end of World War II, the two big winners are America and the Soviet Union, and they're communist. And they were explicitly for world domination. Like, they wanted to spread communism across the world. And so then there's this thing like, we have to be in this battle with them. We got to fight a war in Korea. We got to fight a war in Vietnam. We have to. So then in 1991, they collapse. They just throw in the towel. Just as nobody saw it coming on our side of intelligence. Like the CIA didn't see this coming.
Oh, wow.
They thought they were going to be around for a while.
I thought it was a slow decay and it was just kind of
Well,
like
it was, but they didn't really perceive it. So George H.W. Bush at the time, he went over, gave what's called his Chicken Kiev speech, where he was trying to keep the Soviet Union together. Like they didn't want him to collapse. They were, and
because you need the boogeyman, or
I mean, I don't know. I mean, partly I'm sure that's part of it. I'm sure also they were just like a little concerned about like what replaces this. You guys got a lot of nuclear weapons. Like what's next, you know? And
enemy is better than the enemy.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure there's some of that too. But anyway, as this thing falls in the 90s, there's a lot of debate over like, so what are we supposed to do now? And a lot of conservatives and liberals were like, oh, we can go back to being a normal country now. Like, we don't have to dominate the world. We can go back to like, we could have a peace dividend. We can save money on all this stuff. Okay, so the neocons come in and they go, no. This is what Charles Kradenhammer called the unipolar moment. And he was like, look, we have a moment right now that we can remake the world and no one can stop us. No one's got the power. It used to be kind of like, well, could we get away with doing this over here? The Soviet Union might try to stop us. So can we impose our will on Vietnam versus can the commies impose their will on Vietnam? But he goes, now there's no one like that. We can go do whatever we want to do. And the neocons advocated huge increases in the military budget. Even though the Soviet Union just fell, we're supposed to be pulling back on this. They have a huge increase. And then, of course, all of their think tanks got huge donations from weapons companies. So
now they get to thinking.
Right, exactly. Right. You know, so like, is it one thing? Is it as simple as there's this business who has this? It's like, no, there are like these people who I think do have these beliefs. If those beliefs happen to be weapons companies should make a ton more money, the defense budget should be increased by $200 billion, a whole lot of weapons companies are like, I like that young man. I think he's got some important ideas, you know, and so then the system kind of perpetuates itself.
And then go.
There's no fix to stop that, though. Even if you get the truth out there to everyone, just like Akash's honest answer, we're not going anywhere.
Well, I mean, like, yes and no.
Why would they ever stop?
Because nothing lasts forever. I mean, look, the Soviet Union, why did they ever stop? Because eventually they just kind of realized that the jig was up and the people were on to them and they didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And they were like, I guess we could force them all to stay. We could go put down these revolts, but there just wasn't the will anymore. And I weirdly do see America getting closer to that position where, like, at a certain point, the evil people in Washington, D.C., maybe they would be like, you know what, the National Guard, go put down this movement. But the National Guard people, they're like, they don't even really believe in this thing anymore either. They're like, it's kind of wrong what you're doing.
But then they just throw trans in your algorithm and now we're not caring about it.
Well, that worked for about a decade so far. So yeah, that's one way to play it. No, look, I'm not saying like, who's gonna win this or not. But I don't think it's, look, what is crazy right now is that, like, if you think about even the COVID, there was I'm trying to remember exactly what time this was. There was like, they came out, I remember saying this to Rogan one time in the green room at the mothership, where I was just like, dude, you know how crazy this is? That they were like floating out the idea of doing another round of lockdowns. It was like right at the end of like the Omicron variant or something like that. And you know how they do these things? They put trial balloons out there. You know, they go, we're thinking about having a national vaccine, passport database. And then like people get furious and then they go, no, we were never going to do that anyway. They're always testing what they can get away with. And they floated out lockdowns again. And it was just like for 3 days on Twitter, everybody was like, I will burn this place to the ground if you try to do lockdowns again. I was like, that's not happening. And I said to Joe, I was like, you might be the reason why we're not having lockdowns again. Like you may have just changed the course of the, like if it was all just corporate media and you hadn't like broken that paradigm, they may, I don't know for sure, but like they may have been able to get away with this again. And so stuff like that is like, I actually think there's a lot of that going on where there's things that, it's like you can't see the counterfactual.
Voices that are not under their control.
And what could they have gotten away with if they didn't have that?
So we're just comparing it to what exists, not what it could have been without, I guess, these like free voices.
Does that reach globally, you think? Because like, did they impose that anywhere else, like a late stage Omicron lockdown or whatever?
I do think, I don't know. I don't think so.
Didn't China have a second lockdown?
China had a few rounds of lockdowns there. But China, they can do whatever they want. But
what would be the benefit of another lockdown for them? Like, who profits off of that?
Oh, it was really good for big business, man. Lockdowns were great for big business because it totally it killed all the small and mid-sized businesses, put their competition out, and then everyone's ordering from Amazon. I mean, it's all like it was very good.
It's a big wealth transfer, like those couple years.
And then for all it was the largest transfer of wealth in human history.
That's what I read.
Yeah. Oh no, it clearly was. I mean, it's just the bills that they were signed. I mean, they printed like $6 trillion in 2020 and handed it out. I don't know, like American people got like $1,200 and then the rest went to corporations.
Yeah. You hear a lot of buzzwords in these types of conversations.